some competitors, they feel that the TDS actually measures the mineral contents in the water, and it's actually harmless. Okay, same thing about the electrolysis. I don't know about you, but I've come across many of my customers, many of my friends who will question me when I do that testing. Maybe Mike can elaborate on this?
Yeah, definitely.
What actually is the TDS and the electrolysis?
And I'm going to ask generally, everybody in the audience, I mean, how many of you have children? How many people have children? Come on, put your hands up, don't be shy. Okay. Most of us have children. And I don't know about you, but in my case, when you're living with your children and they're growing up, and you tell them over and over and over, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Pretty soon it's like, in this ear, out that ear. And interestingly enough, you get a family friend or an auntie or a grandparent say, don't do this. Oh, okay. It's like they heard it for the first time. You've been telling them every day for 5 years, but they hear it with new ears. And here's what I decided for today's forum. I think most of you, or many of you, have heard me for a very long time talk on various topics. So what I decided to do is I will continue to tap on my own experience and expertise, but I brought some quotations from some other people so that you can understand in a slightly different way what I'm trying to say. So this question about TDS, total dissolved solids, is something that is so simple and yet so complex. Alvin, you used a TDS meter up here, and a TDS meter is a very, very valid way of showing the dissolved solids in water. And they do this by a process called conductivity. I'm not going to go into all the science, even though that's what I love. That's what I prefer. Most people say, forget it. Here's an article, and I hope you'll excuse me. It's glasses time. This is an article from something called Sciencing. And this Sciencing journal has information on energy, astronomy, biology, nature, geology, electronics, chemistry, physics, math, and hurricanes. Wow, interesting. Here is a quote, and I'll show this to you. And this is on an article called "What is the Difference Between Resistivity and Conductivity?" And again, I won't bore you with that answer. But please just hear what I'm saying. Conductivity has a myriad of uses. And the TDS pen or TDS meter that Alvin just used is a conductivity meter. Now again, this isn't talking about any process. This is just talking about conductivity. It can also be used to test the purity of water, because impure water conducts more readily. So, completely unbiased scientific publication says that impure water conducts more readily. So that's why when you read on a TDS meter that the water is 6 or 10 or 12, and then you compare that with our biopure water that's 0 or 1, there is a huge difference in the purity of the water. So it's not just me that's been telling you this all of these years. big commercial industrial RO systems, the kinds of systems that I put in at the Olympics in Korea, they have built-in conductivity meters that continuously display the ppm of the water. And it's because in this way we are able to determine how well the membrane is functioning in the system. So companies that tell you TDS meters are a gimmick, they're either ignorant or they're telling a falsehood. TDS meters measure the conductivity of the water, and as I just quoted, conductivity goes up as the water becomes more impure. So don't be fooled. Don't be tricked. A TDS meter is an excellent way to measure the difference between tap water and your biopure water. One last point. Do we have time for one more point?
Yeah.
Let me remind you, though, that a TDS meter is not a specific test of contaminants. It just tells you if there are total dissolved solids, how many, as compared to how many in this sample. Just like when you go to the clinic or you visit a doctor. One of the first things they always do is measure your body temperature, correct?
Yes.
They take your temperature. What's a normal body temperature? 37 degrees, plus or minus a little bit. Now, let's just say that your body temperature is 39. Oh, you have a fever. Why? Don't know. You need to investigate. You need to do more tests. You need to figure out what's going on. So when the TDS meter says 10, and if it's a times 10 meter, that means there's 100 ppm of something in there. We don't know what. It could be calcium, it could be nitrate, it could be nitrite, it could be minute particles of arsenic, of lead. We don't know. However, we do know if you have a high body temperature, you better do some more testing. If you have a high TDS reading, you better get rid of that TDS with your biopure system. So that's as simple as I can make it. Okay?
Very good explanation. So it's not a magic trick, huh? This TDS is not a magic trick, okay? Because very often they'll say, they will tell you this is some, so it's not a magic trick, and I think it's very well explained. Thank you, Mike.